This is Chanel Slater.
This is Jackie Tracy.
On May 21st, 2021, we are recording in Marion City Hall. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Carla.
Would you like to be publicly referred to by your first name or first and last name?
First name's fine.
Okay. May we either take a photo of you or have a photo of you to accompany the transcript and recording on our website?
That's fine, yes.
Okay. And we are planning a Readers Theater event with Giving Tree for August 10th. Would you be willing to potentially have your interview performed?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So kind of a big first question. Can you walk me through your connection to Marion?
I moved to Marion in 2008 from Waterloo. I was getting married to someone that lived here, and we both worked for the same company, so I just transferred here. So,
can you walk me through the morning of the Derecho?
it was pretty normal. Got up, made plans to go out to lunch with a friend here in town here, and just nothing unusual that I can think of.
What does a normal day typically look like for you?
That particular day I wasn't working. Usually I'm at work, but that particular day I had off, so we planned to go do some shopping and just kind of hang out and stuff down here in Marion.
And then you talked a little bit about it in your survey, but I wondered if you could explain what you were doing and what it was like when you noticed the storm started coming.
Oh yeah. Well, we went over to what's the name of that coffee shop? Drawing a blank, over on 10th, and we had lunch. And then my friend and I were down in downtown Marion, and she wanted me to take some pictures, some like portrait type pictures for her downtown. So we were between the buildings, and I've actually got some of those photos where I started taking the pictures, and then I noticed these weird dark clouds rolling in behind her, and then I'm like, wow, it looks like it might rain, and then we started hearing the sirens. I go, oh, we better go home. Mm-hmm. So we went home to my house, and she says, I better get out of here. So she took off, and then I went out. I remember going out in the yard, and my neighbor was sitting out in a lawn chair, and I said, looks like we got some rain coming. And he goes, yeah, it sounds like it might get a little ugly. So I said, well, I'm going to put some bird seed out and stuff, just I had no idea what was coming. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll put out, some stuff for the birds and everything so they can eat before the storm comes. And that's when everything kind of went from there. So that was kind of my day. I just was hanging out and not really.
When did it hit you? Was there a moment in particular when you were like, this isn't a normal storm? Yes,
actually, I took some videos of that. My husband's like, he's a stickler on, if there's a siren on, we're going to the basement. So he went to the basement, he took her to the basement, and I said, well, I'm going to come down a little bit. I just want to see what's going on out there. And then all of a sudden, it's like sideways rain, and just, everything's just, just, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, I've been in tornadoes before. It kind of reminded me of that, but it didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going and going. So that was the difference. So
what were you feeling in that moment?
Well, I thought, is this a tornado or what is this? But then it didn't stop coming for like 45 minutes? And I said, I think I better go to the basement. So I went down the basement. And then my parents were trying to call me. They live in Carroll, Iowa, and they were watching the news, and they asked if we were okay, and my phone went dead. So then, of course, later they were very worried, but then the power went out, and needless to say, we were without power for 11 days. But it just was kind of scary because, you're just kind of plunged into darkness down there in the basement, and you're thinking, you're just waiting for the sound of the roof coming off or something, and a couple times I snuck upstairs and looked out the window, and I turned around, ran right back downstairs. I said, I don't think we better come up yet. So it was scary.
Was it just you two at home that day?
No, my stepdaughter was there too, and we had her down there with us, and we had a radio down there, so we were listening to the weather report and stuff, but we didn't have like anything. And it was a battery-powered radio, so that was good, but that's about all we had at the moment. And
Do you remember any of the conversations you had with your stepdaughter and husband?
she just said she was very scared. And I just remember telling her that we had probably one of the better built houses on the whole block. I remember that's one thing that stuck in my mind when we first moved here, was there was an elderly guy that lived across from us, and he says, you know, you got the best built house on the block. And I said, well, at the time I said, I hope we never have to find out how well built it is, but we did. So, I mean, you could hear it creaking pretty good, and I'm like, wow, yeah, we've had bad storms before, but my house had never sounded like that before. So, and she's like, she's like, is it gonna be all right? And I said, I'm pretty sure it will. I mean, what do you tell somebody, you know? It's like, you just sit there and wait for it to be over. But then that was the part that really got to me, was it wasn't over, and wasn't over, and wasn't over. And that was the scary part for me, because it didn't stop.
How did that compare to the times when you talked about earlier, you had a few experiences with tornadoes?
My last experience with the tornado was in Manson, Iowa in 1970, 79 or 78. And that was terrifying. It was a big one. It wiped out the town, and I was just outside of Manson. But like I said, it touched down, it hit, we went to the basement, we came back up a few minutes later, it was gone. And it was very frightening, but this was like, in a way it was worse because you didn't know when it was going to quit. You know, and I had big worries about, we live on Indian Creek Golf Course, and we had giant oak trees out there. I thought, if one of those falls on the house, we're dead. Because they were like we're talking massive. They're probably from the 40s maybe. They're huge, and the limbs were breaking off. And I told my husband, just hope it falls the other way, because if it falls in this house, we're in trouble, because it'll come right down through the basement. But it didn't.
So when the storm was over and you and your family walked back upstairs, what were your initial reactions or thoughts?
It looked like a bomb hit out there. It was kind of surreal, because the backyard, here's this giant, I'll have to show you a picture of it later, humongous oak tree that hangs out over us. And there was 3 huge, they call them widow makers. They're like these giant branches, and they're just teetering off the tree. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I hope our maple trees out front are still there. Those have been there since the 60s, and they're huge. And I had just had them trimmed about the month before. And the guy made the comment, you know, I think we'll probably get a few storms this year, but the wind should go right through them. Well, at one point when I peeked out the window, they were like this, like going over sideways. I thought they're going to snap and land on somebody's house. But they were still standing. But they looked like somebody had taken like a raw twig and just twisted it. And you know how they get that little... Yeah, that's what they looked like. And then my neighbor, a couple doors down, their whole giant pine tree was uprooted and across their driveway. And I mean, we just had trees everywhere. And the one thing that really struck me, and I know this sounds really weird, but I was just kind of looking around, and the neighbors were all coming out, and we're like, well, we got a chainsaw, you know, we can help you. And then we were all helping each other. But I walked over to this hedge, and this is the part that really bothered me the most for some odd reason. I had all these, when I moved into the house, I put out a lot of stuff to feed birds. That's kind of my thing. And I had all these catbirds out there that I just loved. And they were almost tame, and they'd follow me around. And I remember looking up, and there was this little catbird. And she was sitting on the ground just looking at me, and she kept looking down at something. And so I went over, and she just sat there, and I looked down, and it was her baby. But it was still in the nest, and it was still alive. So I picked it up, and I put it back in the hedge. And I don't know whatever happened after that, but it just really bothered me, you know, to see that little baby bird laying on the ground like that. And then we just went down the line to make sure everybody was okay, and got out the chainsaws and just got to work, everybody in the neighborhood, and tried to help. So,
When were you able to get in contact with your parents again?
trying to remember, because the cell phone tower in that area was, you could see the wires were just ripped loose. I'm trying to, I think I managed to get a hold of them a couple days later, maybe. I don't really remember, but it wasn't right away. Yeah, so.
What was that conversation like?
They were just really worried because they'd been watching it on the news there, and they got winds, but nothing like what we got. So, yeah, I was kind of more worried about them. So.
And you mentioned that you work for Unity Point. Can you tell me what you do for them?
I'm a registered nurse there on the rehab floor. Yeah.
So when did you return to work?
I actually happened to have a couple days off during that time, but I went back to work, I think 2 days later, and the power was down, of course, at work and everything. Everything was on generator, and that was a very interesting time. You know, we all kind of worked together to take care of everybody and make sure that, you know, people got everything that they needed. And we worked in the dark a lot, because at that time I was working second shift, so we had like headlamps, and then like each room had a small light on the generator, but like the bathrooms and stuff didn't have lighting, so you'd have to carry light in. But we got by. We took good care of everybody, and it was funny because they pulled out the paper charting, and we're used to computer charting. And my husband's one of the people that's in charge of that for Unity Point as well. And he said it's going to be a while before we get that up and running. So it was funny to see the reaction of some of the younger nurses, because they're like, well, we've never charted on paper before, you know. But it all worked out, so.
How were your day-to-day operations different during that time compared to before the Derecho?
At work or at home?
Yeah, at work.
We really didn't miss a beat. We did everything that people needed done. They were still having physical therapy, you know, and a lot of people were really amazed that you kind of try to be prepared for that stuff. And like I said, they have generator they have certain like outlets that have generators for more critical machines and things like that. So in the hospital, if I remember right, the power company kind of made the hospitals in town a priority to get power back on. So they had power back on within 3 days, I think. It was fast. But in that time, I think people were very happy with their care. I think we took good care of them and just did what we could do. So.
Did you have to care for a lot of patients who were either hurt or something happened because of the derecho?
That I can't discuss,
Sure.
Because that's, confidential.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for telling me. Being librarians, we're also big on privacy too, so it's good to know where boundaries are. Thank you. Let's see. So what was it like, both helping your neighbors and at work during the derecho, but then having the layer of a pandemic on top of it?
That was interesting, but again, it's like, what else is going to happen? And then wham, But you just do your best, and you go in and you think, well, you just take it 1 hour at a time and just do your work and take good care of people. I didn't really think about it a whole lot, because if you sit and think about it, you're going to think to yourself, how on earth am I going to do this? But if you don't think too hard about it, you'll find a way. So that's what we did.
So when you would go home, would you have to start immediately working on derecho cleanup or helping your neighbors?
Well, that's where we got extremely lucky. We had the trees, of course, were messed up, and we did a lot of like cutting and hauling and stuff. But as far as house damage. My elderly neighbor that I had talked to way back when, he was right. I probably had one of the best built houses on the block, and we just had a little bit of siding missing, and let's see, what else? There was a little crack in the driveway where the tree tried to be uprooted by the storm, but it didn't happen. And then what else happened? I'm trying to think what else we had damage on. Our roof was fine because we had put a storm-proof roof on it a few years before when we had hail. So basically our big thing was just day-to-day living, and then we went and helped other neighbors with their stuff, you know, like getting the wood out of their yard and cutting up stuff and just doing the best we could. It was a mess, but it seemed like everybody in the neighborhood pitched in and helped each other, so that helped a lot. So,
Are there any stories you have from that time or memories that particularly stand out to you?
Not really. As far as, I just remember the trees, there been so many branches and twigs and trees and everything that they were up along the sides of the roads, clearing the sidewalks, and I would try to walk my dog, and I'm thinking, there's nowhere to walk, you know, and some of the road was closed off for a while, but the hardest part was getting to work and back because I had to go down Center Point Road and stuff. Oh, that reminds me too, I almost forgot. When my friend took off to go home, I remember getting a text from her right after, because she headed home from my house like right away, and then the storm hit, and then right before my phone went down, I got a text from her that said, I'm scared. And she said, I'm stuck and I'm scared. And I thought, what's going on? Well, later she told me that she got down Center Point Road, because she lives over on Daniels, over by Daniels Park in Cedar Rapids. And she said that she was on Center Point Road, and then a tree fell behind her and a tree fell in front of her. And she couldn't move. And that's when she texted me. She says, I'm really scared. And that's when I lost my phone service. So
When did you get reconnected with her again?
not for a couple of days, and I was really worried about her because, you know, I hope she's okay.
So she had to ride out the storm in her car in between those two
She
trees.
said she was sitting between these two trees, and then she's thinking, I got to get out of here because something else is going to fall and it's going to land on me. And she's in this little tiny Toyota Corolla, and she literally got around the tree and drove up over yard to get up and around, and she went through like an apartment complex parking lot to get back to her house. She said it was really scary because she didn't think she's going to make it home. And I said, well, if either of us had had any idea how bad it was going to be, I would have made her just stay there with us. But we didn't. You know, we just had no clue. So.
Have you seen her in person since then?
Oh, well, yeah, many times. And she said that was probably the most frightening thing that's ever happened to her in her life. She said she's just waiting for the next tree to fall, you know. Yeah.
Were you able to share some of those photos with her?
You mean of...
That you took of her, is that right?
Right before she left?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got them on my, I have a Derecho album on my phone, actually, so I can share with you.
Do those have a little bit of different meaning now for you?
Yeah, I show them to her all the time. I said, you remember you were just sitting there smiling, and right behind her, you could see these weird clouds coming in behind her and Marion. Like, she's sitting on a bench between two buildings that were close to. I'll have to show them to you when we're done there. Yeah, and now I look at them, I think, little did we know what was coming. And then it was right after that that the sirens started going off. And I told her, if you're ever at my house again and the sirens go off, you're not leaving. You're not going anywhere. So, yep.
So after the Derecho, has your life changed much in the months after and the days after?
I'm more resilient when I go to work now, and it used to be, the slightest thing, it's like, oh, how are we going to do this? And now it's like, well, we managed to do all this other stuff, so we can do this, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, when I see storms coming through now, I tend to think, well, is this going to be another bad one, or is it going to be okay? And then you hear that we might be getting more of the same kind of thing, but you just now we've got plans in place. We had, during the derecho, our power was out for 11 days. So we drove up to Waverly to get a generator from a friend of ours, and we ran on generator after several days. So now we're ready, and we've purchased generators, and we've got, alternate ways to run things at our house. So I think a lot of people are doing that too. So a little bit more prepared maybe. So.
And if you didn't have power for 11 days and it was hard to get through with your cell phone, how did you get information during that time?
Well, it's a funny thing. My husband got his cell phone back before I did, but we ended up, I'm trying to think exactly what happened now, because he kind of took care of a lot of that stuff. He had a work computer. He was working from home that he was able to, we had like some sort of system that kept it running for work. So we were able to get, like, on his work phone and on his own phone, we were able to get some service. So we were able to use that. But I think they were pretty quick. If I remember right, like within 3 days maybe they had the phone service back up. I can't remember now. But it was like, we didn't have Wi-Fi or anything. It was more like just phone service. Whatever you call it. Just cellular service.
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess you learn to live without a phone for a couple days.
You said you moved here in 2008, is that right?
During the flood,
I was
yeah.
just going to say. Yeah. How do these times compare?
I was lucky during the flood because it didn't hit the part of Waterloo I was in. I was up on a hill, and I had come down and we had bought the house in Marion, and then we were going to get married, and then so I was leaving Waterloo, we were going to get married, we'd bought a house, then we were going to move into it. And neither of the places were affected, so it helped me sell my other house because people needed it. And we were lucky to buy the other one before real estate got to be a little bit harder to find. Otherwise, we weren't in a floodplain either place, but just getting back and forth was hard there for a while. But
were you a nurse at that time too?
yeah, I worked for Allen Hospital in surgery.
Sure.
So the only really hard part about that with the flood was there was one way to get to the hospital during the flood, and I'd get called out in the middle of the night for emergency stuff, and I'd have to go down this one way down through the east side of Waterloo to get there, and it took a little while to get to work. So yeah.
Did the derecho bring up any of those memories, do you think?
Not really. I don't know. I guess not. The only way I was affected was just getting back and forth to work that time. But I know a lot of other people were affected pretty badly with the flood. So, yeah.
Jackie, did you have any questions?
The only question that I have is, we discussed after the derecho that you didn't have electricity and stuff. Did you have any food issues? Did you have food at home, or were you able to get food, or did you need any resources to help with that?
We had actually went to the store right before it happened. And we had a deep freeze in the basement and then a freezer upstairs, and we didn't have a generator, so we had food for a few days. It kept it cold for a few days, and then we shared it with other people, so they'd have stuff. But as far as, we had a ton of stuff like in the pantry and stuff, so it wasn't really too awful bad. And then once we got the generator up and running, well, first off, our neighbor had a generator, and they came over and they would hook us up for an hour or two, and then they'd go hook themselves up, and then they'd hook us up, and then we'd just buy gas for them. And then we got our own generator. So no, we really didn't.
Okay.
We were one of the few fortunate ones. I know a lot of people did have problems with it though.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we did okay.
I have one question. You mentioned seeing like the baby bird and
Oh, yeah.
also liking to put out food for the birds. Did you notice anything different after the derecho when it came to the birds you would normally see at your house?
Yes, I did. My bird feeders were gone. And we had hummingbirds that come up and fly around our patio, and we had all these hummingbird feeders, and we were down to like one hummingbird after that, or maybe two, and we used to have like 6 or 8. And then we had like just flocks of, I think I probably fed all the birds in the neighborhood. And we had like all these cardinals and blue jays and stuff that had nests on our property, and we were down to just 1 or 2 of everything pretty much. They just, I think a lot of them didn't make it, so that was kind of sad. This year though, I told my husband, I said, I hope we get a catbird, because we had 1 catbird left after that last year, was that mother one, and we had a hawk that took it. So then we had no catbirds, and I was really sad. And I said to my husband, I'm going to put jelly and stuff out for them this year because they like it. And I've got 8 of them now, so just
That
tons
makes me
of
so
them.
happy.
I know.
8 of those and 6 Orioles out there eating jelly, so that was nice. And I've got 2 hummingbirds. So the one, I think the one that was left came back because it looked like the same one. It was a little female one, so hopefully we have some babies.
And then were there any other stories that I didn't touch on or that you can think of from that time?
I just I think the thing that really got me the most was how everybody helped each other. And I mean, everybody was like, do you need anything, or can we help you somehow? And like the neighbor coming over, can I plug you in our generator for an hour or 2 every day to help you out? And you know, just everybody helped everybody, and you don't really expect that, but it happened. So I think that shows kind of how friendly people are in Marion.
Has it changed your relationships with neighbors?
Well, it's funny you say that, because right after the Derecho, they all moved away, and now I got new ones. The people that were next door to us, we were very good friends with them, and they had put their house up for sale and just sold it when the Derecho hit. So we helped them get it all back into snuff for the people that were moving in, and we liked the new people that moved in too. They're very nice. But the people across the street that we were close to, they left, and everybody moved except for 1 or 2 people and us.
Do you think they were pre-planned moves, or do you think
They were. I think they'd bought other houses anyway, and it was the time of year people move. And yeah, and then we had neighbors across the street that had just moved, and they were one of the first people I contacted. Later, I think my other neighbor had a phone that was working, and I contacted him. I said, you know, you got a tree down in your backyard, and they had me send them pictures and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a very bare neighborhood now compared to what it looked like before. I think we've got most of the big trees still, but I think if we hadn't had them trimmed, the ones out front prior to all of this, they probably would have broke. So, because they took a beating. I got pictures of that too, so. Yeah, that was the big thing though. Everybody helped everybody, and a friend of mine I hadn't heard from in years called me up, do you need a generator? I was just thinking about you. And I said, sure. So, you know, it just brings out good things in people. So.
Okay. I can end the recording.
Okay.
now.